Speaking from the womb, the connection between your voice and your womb. Blood and Botanicals mini-series workshop with Divina and Melanie. So I'm Divina. For anyone who does not know me, and I'm a medicine woman, a womb priestess, and a ceremonialist. And a big part of my story in regards to the topic that we're talking about today is that I grew up in a cult. And so my voice was deeply suppressed. I actually have been reading Women Who Run with the Wolves, and I just read something recently where she was talking about how our intuition is passed down from our mothers to us. When our mothers tell us things like, what do you think? What do you feel? What do you see? And that's how we begin to develop the relationship with our inner voice and our intuition. And I never had that because I was always taught that the voice and the direction I needed to follow was outside of myself. It was coming from a man in a church, or a man in a book, or a man above me watching everything, telling me what to do. And so I didn't have a voice. There was no asking questions. There was no curiosity. There was no, just kind of expression, natural, open expression allowed. And so during my process of connecting to my womb and working with my womb, I started to unexpectedly develop my voice. And I started to ask more questions, and I started to not have this closed throat in the back corner of the room. I started to say, actually, I have something I want to share. I have something I want to say. And so these two things are so deeply intertwined and connected, and they started to happen naturally. When I started to work with one, the other started to open. And so that's why I felt like it was really important for us to take some time to dive into this topic in this mini series. And so some of the objectives that we're going to get into today are the anatomy between the larynx and the cervix, and basically the anatomy of like the whole reproductive system and all of the throat. The nervous system connection, somatics in the pelvic floor, emotional and psychological association, why any of this matters, and then the womb throat connection using supporting herbs. So the anatomy. The larynx and the cervix are connected through the nervous system, specifically the vagus nerve. And so the cervix, can you guys see my little pointer? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so beautiful. So this picture is of the entire uterus. Can I zoom in? Oh, look at that. This picture is of the entire uterus. The cervix is down here. And so what I'm speaking of specifically in this moment is the cervix, but there is a correlation, as we can clearly see, right, between the shape of the larynx and the uterus. It's almost identical in so many ways, like the way that this is shaped, the entrance between this is the entrance to the vagina, the entrance of the larynx. Like there's so many physical, anatomical similarities between the two. Both structures are midline organs, which mean they lie in the midsection of the body, and they're highly sensitive, muscular, and responsive to emotional states. What does that mean? The vagus nerve, what it regulates is safety versus threat, relaxation versus contraction, emotional expression, and it connects the brain to the throat, the heart, the stomach, the uterus, cervix, pelvic floor. our reproductive organs. And so responsive to emotional states means both of these parts of our body are affected depending on what emotional state we are in. If we are in a trauma response of fight or flight, if we are feeling safe and relaxed and open, or if we are feeling tight and contracted and closed. Basically, our body is constantly telling our brain in any given scenario if we're safe or not. The nervous system. So I just mentioned fight or flight and what happens with the vagus nerve. And so this ties into the nervous system. When our nervous system feels unsafe, the throat tightens, the pelvic floor and the cervix tightens. And when the nervous system feels safe, the voice opens and the cervix softens and actually descends in the vagina. So this is a good question for us to just kind of ask ourselves. Have we ever actually noticed that when we're afraid, oftentimes there's like tightening of the jaw, there's maybe like dryness of the throat where you kind of feel like you have cotton mouth. Maybe the throat actually gets kind of itchy, tightening of the pelvic floor, like your hips feel tight and closed in, versus when you feel safe, when you feel relaxed, like if you're having a nice hot bath in your home and you feel safe and everything softens and the tone of your voice might soften and your pelvic floor softens and releases. And so this is another anatomical similarity between the actual vocal cords, which are at the top, and the vulva. So this whole thing is the vulva. And then this is the vagina, the vaginal opening. And so there's a lot of similarities between the way that these two actually work. Because when our body and our nervous system feels safe, our vaginas actually go from a really tight position into softening and opening gradually. And they just open to receive when they feel safe. When there is not safety, it's a tight space and it's very difficult to get anything in there. And it's the same thing with the vocal cords. So the emotional and psychological connection here, um, and also, okay, I was just checking the chat. So the emotional and psychological connection here, the cervix is associated with boundaries, receiving, openness, and trust. And the larynx is associated with expression, truth, self-definition, and voice. So some of the things culturally that women often experience: don't speak up, don't feel too much, you're being too emotional, you're being too much, don't express your opinion, no one wants to hear what you have to say, don't take up too much space, you might be making someone else uncomfortable. This kind of line of thought, it lives and connects in the womb and in the throat. And so why does any of this even matter? The list is long. I wrote some on here, but let's like take a minute to think about this. When we show up in the world and we're unable to use our voices to ask for what we need, whether that be in a relationship, in a partnership, in a friendship, in it could be at a restaurant. If they bring your food and it's not what you ordered, how many times I know that I used to do this all the time where I would just be like, oh, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to say anything. Why can't we speak up? We've been taught to be silent. We've been taught to not express ourselves, to not ask for what we need, even if it's something as simple as salt at a restaurant or whatever the thing might be. Another reason why this is really important is because So many women are having difficulties with tapping into their pleasure, tapping into orgasm, experiencing orgasm and pleasure in their body. There are actually like diseases that cause extremely painful intercourse because the vagina is so closed and so tight. And so this connection matters because when we begin to work with our wombs, when we begin to connect to these tissues, to learn what safety means in the body, when we begin to allow ourselves to receive and feel pleasure all throughout our bodies and our beings and our hearts, we will begin to show up in the world in a way that allows our voices to be heard, that allows us to literally open the throat and ask for what we need, to speak our truth, to say no, to say yes, to say, actually, I feel this, to speak up in the meeting at work, to say, actually, I think this, to use our voice. Our voices are so powerful, especially as women. Our voices can move mountains. And that's a part of, in my opinion, why we were taught to be quiet, to be small, to stay contracted, to stay tight. We're walking around, and you can't see my other fist down here, but both of my fists are like this. We're walking around in the world with all of this tightness, holding, 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 holding in the throat, holding in the womb. We're not taught how to regain and recalibrate the nervous system to feel safe, especially after we've had really intense or traumatic experiences. So it's like a reprogramming of all of the things that we've been taught, not only from society, from societal norms, from religion, from familial expectations, but also from the things that we've had to take on as a form of protection to keep us safe. So this work helps the body to recognize, actually, we are safe. We can be safe. This is what safety feels like. This is what safety looks like. This is how you breathe into safety. This is how safety allows you to open. This is what it feels like to open. This is what it feels like to soften. This is what it feels like to speak, to use the voice, to open, to allow yourself to be heard. So funny that I'm talking about this with my voice like this. I can't. And if anybody has any questions about anything that I went over, or if I went too fast and there's something that you didn't catch, please feel free to stop me. And here we are.
Can you?
Oh, there's
Oh, there's a question. Yeah. Uh,
everything's so clear. Okay, good.
I want to hear more about like the science between the cervix and the larynx.
Let's go back between these two.
Yeah, like maybe some practices.
Oh yeah. Oh, thanks. I didn't write that in here, but um yes, so sounding. So when we sound, um it not only softens the larynx, but it also softens the cervix. So we can sound in any moment. I really like if I'm leading a meditation, when I'm doing breath work, I'm always sounding. Also, when we are experiencing pleasure, tapping into pleasure, whether that be a self pleasure ritual or with another person, sounding. We should be sounding because as we're sounding, we're opening the throat and we're opening the cervix. We're softening, we're opening. And so, sounding can be any sound that your voice and your throat wants to express. So, we're breathing in, deep belly breath. And we're exhaling with a sound. That is one form of sounding. Deep breathing into the belly, sounding, releasing. It can also be a sounding with the lips not pursed but closer together. And there's an invitation to try any of these now if it feels good for you. And you can feel that vibration in the throat. And you can play around with the sounding. What does it feel like to open the mouth here? Ah. And then you can allow that sound to move through your body. It's really important that as we're breathing, we're not holding, right? Because it's kind of counterproductive. If we're allowing our bodies to breathe, to exhale, to release, we need the throat to be a part of that process. So holding in the throat is the opposite of what the breath is trying to do, which is soften the body and tell the nervous system that we're safe. And so the same goes when we are moving with a self pleasure practice or with a partner. If you are with a partner or in your practice, and whatever it is that you're doing, maybe you have your self pleasure tool or you're using your hands and you're in your process, but your jaw is clenched and your throat is closed and you're like, how does that even look? Like you can see it in my throat, this everything is tight and clenched up at the top and it's closed and it's like I can't breathe. That's exactly the reflection of what your cervix is doing, of what your vagina is doing. And so if we want to experience pleasure and allow pleasure into the body, the vagina has to be open in a receptive state, not in the state of fear and closed, but like softened and open and able to receive. And that's the difference between being able to actually deeply touch our pleasure, our capacity for pleasure in our body. When we're closed and doing the thing and tight and constricted versus really being intentional about softening and opening and sounding and breathing and allowing all of these different parts that signal to the vagus nerve, to the nervous system, we're safe. We're safe. We're safe to soften. We're safe to open. We're safe to feel. We're safe to receive. It's like a huge shift that happens in the body, and the amount of pleasure and fun and playfulness that we're able to experience in our bodies is profound when we can teach ourselves how to open in this way. Is that helpful?
Do you know if there's any like research done on sound and how sound, your own vocalization and how it shifts your nervous system? Would that be through the vagus nerve? Or like
I'm
would that be more like actually, well, hold on. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there is. I don't know the
Mhm.
stats on the research, but I feel 90% sure that there has been research on the effects of sounding on the nervous system and the vagus nerve.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Exciting stuff.
it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Okay.
Giving it over.
Hello, I am Melanie. I'm a community herbalist and slippery elm bark tea. Yeah, that'll help. The throat. Yeah, so I'm a community herbalist, and in this series of Bud and Botanicals, I talk about herbs that can be supportive in these different topics that we've been talking about. So, We've talked about trauma. We've talked about trauma in the womb. We've talked about pleasure and different topics. And here we're talking about vocalization and voice and the connection and the connection between um, the vocalization, sounding, and the cervix. But what stood out to me is the vagus nerve connection, which is what I'm going to be discussing. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so the concept of a community herbalist, I there's a lot of different, I say community herbalist because I think it's more, a lot of it's rooted in community care. And I think, a lot of herbalism is, but there's a lot of different paths. So some folks will be, um, yeah, maybe when I've seen other people explain this, I, when I've seen other people explain this, I've seen this as being more of a kind of like, how do I say, like a, I don't want to say an ideology, but kind of like a movement. Like community care is herbal care. And so as an herbalist, you are rooted in community and supporting your community, whether that being and that's how I perceive it. Um Let's go. Yeah, we can. We can. But yeah, that's how I would like to break down community care. So really it's showing up for your people. As an herbalist, you are with and for your community, but I think it's deeper in like collective care. So um, I don't know if that explained it well, but I see it as like what I do is not just for me, but it's also for the people, you know? Thank you. Okay, so supportive herbs. In this, where in the section where Davina talked about how between fight and flight and the rest and digest, so from feeling safe and from not feeling safe, this bitters are a really great way to helping our bodies shift out of this sympathetic state into a parasympathetic state, and that is our rest and digest state. And they do that through the vagus nerve. And and I feel that when we're talking about helping our bodies shift out of this heightened state where maybe there's a lot of stress um or our nervous system is just fired up. Um I lost my train of thought, but I'm going to share an example of how bitters have helped me. Um I like bitters because I've used them in moments where I didn't think I would need them, but all I had was a bitter tincture and I wanted like, let me just try my bitters tincture. It's in a moment where there was a moment where I was by my computer. I was really stressed and um, my mind was just running and I had my bitters tincture and I took the tincture and I let it kind of coat my tongue. And through that action of coating my tongue and that bitterness compounds touching my bitter receptors, there's this cascade effect that happens all along throughout our system, and it's going to target. So bitter receptors exist they begin in our tongue and then they kind of reach out to these different areas of our body. And that is from cardiovascular system, our respiratory, our digestive system, our reproductive system, and other areas, but it basically targets those main areas. So for me, it's kind of the taste is shocking, but it sends a chill down your spine. And so bitters has this kind of grounding action that's going to really that's going to help you root down into your body. So when I think of bitters, it's downward energy, and I feel how it feels for me is it's grounding me back into my body. And with this experience, this example of one of my experiences, after like 20 minutes, like I started to feel relaxed. Like after I felt the chills of like, oh shit, that was shocking. It was bitter, but the chills, like I felt this chills going down my spine, down my body, and then I shifted into this, like I just felt relaxed. And I think bitters in helping are a great ally for when we are just needing help, relaxing and kind of just, and even I've even done this where before I have a meeting, I take a bitters tincture because it's relaxing and it's going to it and it primarily acts on the vagus nerve, and that's what's activating. The bitters and the vagus nerve go hand in hand, and the bitter receptors that we have within our body. So, for supporting our system and helping our system shift into a more relaxed state, I think bitters are great. So sorry. So example of a few bitters is dandelion root. Dandelion root and greens are great bitter options to have. It's pretty accessible. You probably have them growing in your yard. Obviously, don't pick them if they use fertilizer or not fertilizer, but any other type of, pesticides or anything like that on your yard. Don't pick them, but if you know your yard is fine and it's clean or far away from the highway, I highly recommend picking some dandelion. Right now in winter is a perfect time to pick dandelion root because um, all the roots are storing their nutrients. So you're going to have a pretty nutrient dense root. Sage leaf is also a great bitters. I love sage because just energetically, it's kind of like this. It's considered the wise plant, so helping you access your inner wisdom, but it's a great bitters. It's aromatic. It's I feel with sage, I feel it's one of these plants that can help us digest things that not to help us digest not just physically, but also energetically and help us clear and move energy. So if we are, and it's a relaxing nerving, but also kind of uplifting. So if there is a bit of tension, I think sage can help guide our nervous system back into this calm state while helping energetically clear what's what we've been picking up in our day to day because energy sticks sometimes. That's not even ours. Vervain leaves and flowers. This is another great plant. Also unnerving, also really relaxing. The artichoke leaf too. This one's really, really bitter. You really do not need a lot if you are looking for plants, new plants to explore, and you decide artichoke is one of them. You don't need a lot. Very little goes a long way. Um, so yeah. So as far as bitters and the vagus nerve is one set of herbs that we can focus on. And let's see. Can you go to the next slide? Thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it also artichoke the vegetable that can help, or just the leaf?
Yeah, I'm gonna put my computer on do not disturb. There we go, because I keep it. Um, You can, yeah, it can mostly the leaf is going to be really, really, really bitter, like insane, like it's so insanely, but so good. So in a tea, you it wouldn't be the best palatable tea, so highly recommended in a tincture. And then through tincturing them, you can, because sage is really nice in a tea, so is vervain. Um, but artichoke leaf is one of them that I'd recommend in a tincture, and then just little doses. Um, Another set of plants that I think are great for helping relax and helping us when we are, um, yeah, just relaxing tension and contraction is antispasmodics. There are different antispasmodics. Most of these two are actually going to be have bitter qualities. So lavender is one of my favorite antispasmodics. It's relaxing, it's uplifting, very aromatic. If you steep it long enough, it gets really bitter, so it's going to be relaxing. And there are nervines too. So nervines are going to be plants that are going to calm the nervous system. And if we are talking about pleasure practices, I love to have a nice, calming, relaxing blend. And this can be with lavender, with chamomile, it can be with even sage. But I like those heavier, sedate, sedative, hypnotic plants, and lavender is one of those hypnotic plants, maybe with some hops will be a nice blend because I like that that tranquil kind of sensation that just helps me drop into my body and kind of slows the mind. But antispasmodics are going to they act on the smooth muscles, and that's the smooth muscles throughout. We have smooth muscles here, we have smooth muscles in our digestive system, respiratory, our smooth muscles in our reproductive system. So it's helping relax those muscles. Lavender is a for me, it's a great one along with skullcap. Anyways, betony flowers, chamomile flowers. Chamomile is I think, yeah, chamomile can be used for so many things. When I make a chamomile tea, I do a long ass infusion, 30 minutes overnight to really extract the properties of it. In a strong infusion, chamomile will do the things that we read about it helping with. So carminative, helping it with yeah, spasms, and this can be stomach cramping, this can be menstrual cramping, um, this can even be just spasms from like coughing, like respiratory. Um, that's a great, yeah. Chamomile flowers, skullcap is another one too. Um, I only talked about three. I just talked about the bitters, the vagus nerve, antispasmodics, there's nervines, even some of the herbs that we talked about in these previous courses, like kava, can be really helpful for helping you drop into to your body, relax and uplift. Um, Really bitter, and that numbing sensation on kava is really interesting too. Um, okay, and the next slide. And color medicine. So when I think of the voice, I also think of the throat chakra. So I think working with flowers are really nice. So you can make a nice work with the flowers energetically, even working with the flowers in an essence and having those either taken directly, like flower essences, taking those directly or taking adding it to your water to get that energetic support. So sage flowers, meadow sage, pitcher sage, butterfly pea flower, violets. Violets are actually great for the respiratory system as well. So if we're talking about using our voice and opening up our airways, violets is really going to be great for that. Borage flowers. So I like to also work with, you can also work with the flowers for our plants for their energetic purposes, but by colors. So um, if you wanted to work with a lot like more rooting plants, like for your root chakra and grounding, I'd say actual root like root vegetables, beets, heart medicines can be those that are even so like warming plants, like thyme can be a bit warming, but also like having the color of blood, so hibiscus can be a great one. But Yeah, these are just some plants that I think can help in the process of relaxing and helping us drop into the body. But um, I also think too, sometimes there's so many different plants we can use and think about using. And I feel the easiest one could be a nice bitters plant because it kind of shocks your system. It shocks your taste buds of like, oh shit. And it helps you like, whoa, I was not expecting that taste at all. What was that? And then you start to feel the medicine of it grounding you in. And sometimes that's kind of all you need. Especially too, sometimes with pleasure, if it's like there's this nervous sensation, if you like, wanting to self-explore, and then you have this bitters, like, oh, okay, that was fine. Let's come back in, like good medicine. And then the chills calms you down. So, but I want to read more into the vagus nerve connection and dive more into that as far as the larynx and the cervix goes. I think that's really interesting.
Thanks, Mel. Do you
Mm.
want to tell us about blood and botanicals?
Yeah, so this is our program, our coaching program we we started, and a lot of it is rooted in helping women reclaiming our own power, reclaiming ourselves, helping us feel comfortable in our bodies, not fear what happens in what's happening, not fearing the natural processes of menstruation, healing maybe even trauma we might have that's associated to our cycle, or just anything that has to do with disconnecting us from our womb and our personal power. This program is a guide, is both of us helping and guiding into helping you achieve the connection or what you feel is missing or what you feel is lost, and you want to rebuild that with yourself. We are here as a supportive offer. We offer this supportive container. So Davina is working more with ritual and more of the energetics, the somatic practices, and I am helping guide the body as the body is energetically and moving through whatever may come up, or whether it can be through celebration or it can be through um, through through just trauma or breakthroughs or anything. So I'm the body and Davina is the spirit. So the blood and botanicals.
Yeah, thank you. And I've been so incredibly like floored by the results that we're having with the women that we're working with. This combination of ritual and spirituality and energetics with the support of the herbal protocols, of the tinctures, of the plants is like it's nothing I've ever seen before. It's really, really incredible work, and I'm really grateful to be doing it, to be sharing it.
Mhm.
So this is us. If you want to connect, websites, emails, Instagrams, and then you both on the call tonight have my direct contact information. And if you're watching this replay, you can also reach out at any time via email. We are here to answer any questions. If you're curious about Blood and Botanicals, the holistic ritual coaching program, let's talk about it. Let's have a moment to connect and see where you need support